The night I realized my marriage was already over, I was standing under fluorescent lights that made everyone look tired. A stranger held my wrist gently, like he didn't want to scare me, and he said a sentence that split my life in half. "I didn't know you were her husband." I'm a paramedic in Seattle. You learn to read people fast in this job. Pupils, breathing, tone, the way someone avoids eye contact when they're hiding something. But somehow, for years, I missed the one person I thought I knew best. My wife Alyssa and I had been married 7 years. We met in our mid-20s at a volunteer cleanup along the waterfront. She was the organized one with a clipboard and sunscreen. I was the guy who showed up late, carrying an extra trash grabber because I assumed someone would forget theirs. She laughed at my confidence. I remember thinking I could spend my whole life trying to make her laugh again. Alyssa worked for the city as an urban planner. She cared about sidewalks the way some people cared about poetry. She'd point at a cracked curb and talk about how it affected strollers, wheelchairs, older people trying to cross. I loved that about her. She was the kind of person who noticed who life was hard for. When we got married, our friends called us solid. Not flashy, not dramatic, just steady. The kind of couple you expected to still be together in old photos. I depended on her more than I admitted. My job was chaos. Sirens, blood, strangers' last breaths. I carried it home even when I didn't talk about it. Alyssa could pull me back into normal life without making me feel weak. She'd say, "Shower first, then tell me the 3 things that went right today." It was her way of saving me without calling it that. The first cracks didn't feel like cracks. They felt like scheduling. Alyssa started working late more often. At first, it made sense. Her department got a new project, a redesign of a corridor that had been in the news for accidents. She said there were meetings with engineers, community boards, consultants. I knew nothing about her world, so I believed it. Then she started mentioning a name, Grant. Grant thinks we can reroute the bus lane. Grant has done this in Portland. Grant says the community will push back. I pictured Grant as a 55-year-old man with gray hair and a tie. I didn't picture him at all, honestly. He was just a word in Alyssa's sentences. At home, Alyssa was still kind, but the kindness shifted. Less warmth, more politeness, like she was doing the right things because they were on a list. I started trying harder. More dinners, more questions. I'd sent her little notes. "You've got this. Proud of you." She'd text back, "Thanks, love." It should have felt good. Instead, it felt automated. One Saturday, I suggested a weekend trip to the coast. Alyssa stood in the kitchen holding her mug with both hands, like she needed it to stay upright. "I can't," she said. "I'm presenting next week." I tried to hide my disappointment. "You've been presenting next week for months." She flinched, like I'd raised my voice, even though I hadn't. "I'm doing my best," she said. And then softer, "You don't understand how much is riding on this." That phrase lodged itself in me. You don't understand. I started noticing little things. Her phone face down on the table, the way she'd step into the hallway to take a call, then come back smiling like she'd swallowed a secret. Her new habit of going for walks after dinner, alone, without headphones, like she wanted to be fully present somewhere else. The worst part was how quickly my brain tried to protect her. Every time suspicion rose, I pushed it down, because imagining betrayal felt like imagining my own stupidity. Then the city held a public open house for her project. It was in a community center gym, with posters on easels and stale coffee and cardboard urns. Alyssa invited me. "I want you there," she said, and for a moment I saw the old her. I wore a clean button-down like it mattered. I walked into that gym and found her by a big map explaining something to a couple in their 60s. She looked confident, alive. And when she saw me, her smile landed perfectly on my face. "This is my husband, Evan," she said. She introduced me to coworkers, community members, a few people I recognized from local news. It felt normal. Maybe I'd been paranoid. Maybe work really was just work. Then I saw him. Grant. He wasn't 55. He was maybe late 30s, fit, dark hair, the kind of man who looked like he ran on purpose. He stood close to Alyssa, not touching her, but close in that way that suggests familiarity. When she laughed at something he said, her shoulder tilted toward him like a magnet. He turned and saw me. His expression did something I didn't like. It flickered, like surprise that turned into quick calculation. Then he walked over with a hand outstretched. "Evan," he said, "I've heard a lot about you." His grip was firm. His eyes didn't smile, even when his mouth did. Alyssa stood between us like a bridge. I told myself it was in my head. After the event, Alyssa was energized. She talked about feedback, next steps, grants, actual grants, not the man. She drove home with one hand on the wheel and the other tapping the air, like her brain was still in that gym. At home, she hugged me, a real hug, and I felt my body unclench for the first time in months. That's what made the next part so brutal, because I let my guard down. 2 weeks later, I had a night shift that turned into the kind of shift you don't forget. A multi-car pileup on I-5, rain slicking the asphalt, people crying, a kid with a broken arm trying not to scream because he didn't want to scare his little sister. I came home after sunrise with adrenaline still buzzing in my skin. Alyssa was already gone. She'd left a note. "Meeting early. Sleep. I love you." I slept. When I woke up, my phone had a voicemail from an unknown number. I almost ignored it. But something in me, some leftover instinct from my job, made me press play. A man's voice. Shaky. "I'm sorry to call like this," he said. "My name is Jonah. You don't know me." I think you should." There was a pause, like he was trying not to cry. "I was at Harborview last night. My brother got admitted. I was in the hallway, and I saw her." Another pause. "With Grant." My stomach went cold. I sat up so fast my head spun. The voice continued, careful and apologetic. "I didn't recognize her at first, but I went to that city open house. I remember her. She was explaining the project." He swallowed audibly. "They were in the hallway by the vending machines. She was crying. He held her face, and then she kissed him. I couldn't hear anything for a second, like my ears had shut down to protect me. When sound came back, it was the voicemail still playing. "I didn't know you were her husband," Jonah said softly. "I saw her ring and I thought maybe it was complicated. But then I heard her say, 'I can't do this much longer.' And he said, 'You don't have to. We'll figure it out.'" My hands were shaking. I rewound it and listened again. Like repetition would change the words. Like listening hard enough would reveal it was about someone else. It wasn't. I called Alyssa. No answer. I texted, "Where are you? Call me." Nothing. I sat at the kitchen table staring at the grain in the wood like it might tell me what to do next. In my work, when something is bleeding, you put pressure on it. When something is broken, you stabilize it. But there is no protocol for your life splitting open. Alyssa came home at noon. She walked in like she expected a normal day. Then she saw my face, and she stopped. "What happened?" she asked, instantly alert. It was the first time in months she sounded like my wife. I held up my phone. "I got a call," I said. Her eyes went to the phone like it was a weapon. From that look alone, I knew. "Alyssa," I said, and my voice sounded calm in a way that scared me. "Who is Grant to you?" She didn't answer right away. Her mouth opened slightly, closed. Then she set her purse down with slow, careful movements, like sudden motion could shatter the room. "It's not," she started. I raised a hand. "Don't," I said. "Don't start with 'it's not.' Just answer." Her shoulders sagged. "He's someone I leaned on," she said. I let out a humorless breath. "People don't kiss people they lean on in hospital hallways." Her face flushed. "I didn't think anyone saw," she whispered, and I swear that was the moment something inside me died. Not because she kissed him, because her first fear wasn't what it would do to me, it was being seen. I stood up. My legs felt numb, like I'd been sitting too long. "How long?" I asked. Tears filled her eyes, but they didn't fall. "It started as work," she said. "It really did." I stared at her. "He understood me. she continued quickly, like speed could make it less terrible. The pressure, the politics, the way everyone wants something from you. And you've been so tired, Evan. There it was, the first attempt to make it about me. I nodded slowly. I am tired, I said. I'm tired because I pick broken people off the ground for a living, and I come home to the one person who used to make it feel worth it. My throat tightened. And now I find out she's saving her softness for someone else. Alyssa flinched again. It wasn't like that. I laughed once, sharp and sharp. Then tell me what it was like. She looked down. I don't know when it changed, she said. At some point, I started thinking about him when I wasn't with him. I started dressing differently for meetings. I started feeling like myself again, feeling like herself, as if I'd been the thing dulling her. I took a step back. What was I then? I asked. A place to sleep? A person to help you look stable? She shook her head fast. No, Evan, I love you. I believed she believed that. And that was the cruelest part, because love, to her, had become a feeling she could keep while still dismantling the life we built. I sat back down, because my legs finally gave up pretending. Did you plan to leave? I asked. Alyssa stared at the floor. I didn't know, she said. Did he? I asked. That got her attention. Her jaw tightened. He said he'd wait, she whispered. Wait, like our marriage was a train schedule. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I did something worse. I got very quiet. Okay, I said. Alyssa looked up, hope flickering like a match. Okay, she repeated. I nodded. Okay, I said again, slower. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell your department you need time off. You're going to stop working with him. Today, her mouth fell open. You're going to go to counseling with me, I continued. And you're going to be honest. Not strategic, not careful. Honest. I looked her in the eyes. And if you can't do that, then you're going to pack a bag and you're going to go. Her face crumpled. You're giving me an ultimatum. I shrugged slightly. I'm giving you a chance, I said, which is more than you gave me. Alyssa began to cry then, quietly, hands pressed to her mouth. I don't know if I can, she whispered. That sentence was the second death, because it meant Grant wasn't a mistake. He was a choice she was still considering. I stood up again. Then I did the emotionally wrong thing. I said, fine, stay, do whatever you want. And I walked past her, into our bedroom, and shut the door. I didn't leave the house. I didn't call a friend. I didn't confront Grant. I lay on the bed staring at the ceiling, waiting for Alyssa to come in and fight for us, waiting for her to prove the woman I married still existed. She didn't. Not that day, not the next. She slept on the couch that night. I could hear her moving, the soft sounds of a person who can't get comfortable. I wanted to go to her, to wrap my arms around her and beg her not to ruin us, but something in me refused, because that would mean I was the one doing the saving again. In the days that followed, Alyssa tried in small, pathetic ways. She made dinner. She asked about my shift. She left little notes like she used to, but I could feel the absence of her certainty, the invisible third person in every room. We went to counseling, in a beige office with plants that looked fake. Alyssa said she felt unseen. I said I felt erased. The counselor asked if Alyssa would cut contact with Grant. Alyssa hesitated. That hesitation said everything. 2 weeks later, Alyssa moved out. She framed it as space. I didn't argue. I was too exhausted to fight for something she held so loosely. The weird part was how quiet the house became. No more hallway phone calls. No more late night walks. Just silence and the hum of the refrigerator. At work, I found myself watching other couples in crisis. A woman gripping her husband's hand in an ER waiting room like it was the only thing keeping her alive. A man crying into his girlfriend's shoulder after a bad diagnosis. And I'd think, they don't even know how lucky they are to still trust each other. 1 month after Alyssa moved out, I ran into Jonah, the man who left. He was visiting his brother again. I was in the hallway charting when he recognized me. He looked guilty. I hope I didn't make things worse, he said. I surprised myself by saying, you didn't. You told me the truth. Then I asked, did you see them again? He nodded slowly. Once, he said. A week later, same hallway. They weren't crying that time. That detail hit harder than the kiss because it meant they'd moved past the messy part. They were comfortable. That night, I went home and opened a box in the closet. Inside were old photos, wedding pictures, trips, goofy selfies. I sat on the floor and looked at my own face in those photos. I looked younger, more trusting, like someone who believed stability was guaranteed if you worked hard enough. I realized something then. I hadn't just lost Alyssa. I'd lost the version of myself who built his identity around being the stable husband, the supportive partner, the man who could handle anything. For weeks, I'd been trying to repair the relationship. But what I actually needed was to rebuild myself. I filed for divorce in the quietest way possible. No revenge. No dramatic speech. Just paperwork and signatures, and the slow dismantling of shared accounts. Alyssa cried when I told her. She said, "I never wanted this." And I said, "But you walked toward it anyway." After we signed, I went outside and sat in my car. I expected to feel free. Instead, I felt hollow. But hollowness is still space. And space can be filled with something new. I started doing things that had nothing to do with being someone's husband. I joined a climbing gym, even though I was bad at it. I took a photography class because I wanted to see the world differently than I had. I started cooking meals that Alyssa never liked. Small rebellions. Small proofs that my life belonged to me again. Months later, I ran into Alyssa at a grocery store. She looked thinner, tired, not glowing with new love the way my fears had painted it. She asked if I was okay. I told her the truth. "I'm learning who I am without you," I said. It was the kindest and hardest sentence I'd ever spoken. She nodded like she understood. Maybe she did. Maybe she finally saw what she'd taken. That night, I stood in my apartment, my new apartment, and looked at myself in the mirror. Not the old version, not the solid couple husband, just me, a man who had been betrayed, a man who survived it, a man who learned that love without loyalty isn't a safety net, it's a trap. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a half-finished person. I felt like someone starting over, on purpose.